Hi, welcome along to the Compassionate Q&A interview season. I am Dr. Marianne Trent and I'm a qualified clinical psychologist. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you are watching live or whether you are watching replay. Currently, I should be streaming live to Facebook, my personal profile, my business page, my membership, the free Facebook group, my LinkedIn, my YouTube, Twitter/X, and brand new is Instagram. So please, if you are watching live, please do drop me a like, a love, something like that, and drop in the comments where you're watching from. It is brand new that you can now comment via Twitter, X, whatever it is, and I can see your comments in the moment. So if you are watching via Twitter, via X, please do make sure that you drop me a comment, because you'll be my first ever Twitter commenter live on this platform. If you've never commented, if you've never watched a StreamYard broadcast before, it might well just come up with username. It might not give me your name, but if you wanted to, either now or in future, you can go along to streamyard.com/Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, and that gives me permission to be able to access your name so that I can see who it is that's watching. But you also don't have to, it's entirely up to you. So for those of you who know me already, you might well know that I have been really, really passionately supporting aspiring psychologists since 2019, I think it is. I loved being an aspiring psychologist, and you might be like, what? Why did you love this? I just really enjoyed learning, growing, being stretched, rising to the challenge. I could feel my brain getting bigger and bigger by the moment as I soaked up all this information. And I really loved the camaraderie that I had with my fellow assistant psychologists when I was working at St Andrew's Healthcare in Northampton. And so I just loved it. And actually, when I qualified, I've always loved supporting and nurturing and supervising honorary or paid assistant psychologists, or just hanging out with members of the team who might be interested in pursuing a career in psychology, or just people who never wanted to be psychology. I loved being around people and helping them grow, helping them understand things from a psychological perspective. So that is a little bit about me. Please do let me know in the comments that you can hear me loud and clear, because that would be horrendous if I got to the end and realised that you couldn't hear a word I was saying. The podcast, which might be where you know me from, is now over 2 years old. The Aspiring Psychologist podcast, which you can watch either on YouTube or listen to as an MP3. New episodes are available on YouTube at 10 a.m. on Saturdays and are available at 6 a.m. on Mondays. So I can't see any comments yet, and I'm kind of a little bit reluctant to get started in case you can't hear me. So can someone please, whoever you are, let me know that you can hear me okay. And oh, here we go. Thank you so much, Alison. So there you go. And we can see that that's Alison. And she says, I can hear you fine. Hooray. So this is a session I need to finish today at about 10 to 7, because I also run a membership, and originally I was going to be having somebody else run a membership session today, but they're not very well, so I am stepping in to run a session, which means I can't be in 2 places at once. So thank you so much for watching. Hi Georgie, watching from YouTube, lovely to have you here. So let me know in the comments what would feel like a good use of your time between now and 10 to 7. If people don't want to stay until then, or haven't got any questions, or haven't got anyone asking anything or commenting anything, then we might well finish sooner. So don't be shy. If you've got a reason why you're here, please do let me know in the comments. So in the past, these sessions have been Q&A sessions for people who might be really excited or a bit nervous about interviews, because this is the interview season, but also this can be a really disappointing or frustrating time too, because Friday was the deadline for when clinical psychology courses had to let people know whether they were going to be offering them interviews or not. Now, of course, this Q&A is not just for aspiring clinical psychologists, as indeed the podcast is not just for aspiring clinical psychologists. I try to make it relevant to all. I know that at the moment, I think educational psychology and counselling psychology are also letting people know whether they are being invited to interview. So there might be lots of disappointment going around. There might be lots of excitement going around. There might be lots of hope going around. And today in the UK is, well, I only can speak for the UK really, but today was the first day of interviews for the clinical psychology clearinghouse programs. And those interviews, let me tell you, were for this week we've got Bangor, Teesside, East Anglia, Leicester and Sheffield. So if you have an interview for one of those, or perhaps if you have actually had an interview for one of those, I think one of the courses I seem to remember is only interviewing in the middle days, I think like Wednesday and Thursday this week and Wednesday and Thursday next week, I think, just like 2 random days. So one of those courses, I can't remember which it was, is only 2 days this week. But yeah, let me know. Why are you here? Why are you watching? What would feel like a good use of your time by the time you click off and make yourself a cup of tea? Or maybe you're eating your dinner right now. I just had time to make myself a cup of tea. I do love tea, but only herbal or fruit teas. This is a red bush tea. TikTok tea. I do better with TikTok tea than I do actually on TikTok. Right, Alison, thank you. I have an interview at Lancaster next week. It's my first year of applying, so I'm very pleased, but also very nervous. I know they're going to be assessing our understanding of contextual awareness. Could you maybe give me a few pointers on that, if possible? Right, contextual awareness. Do you mean like the context in which psychology is being delivered currently? Do you mean kind of the context that you are operating from, or do you mean some other kind of contextual awareness? Let me know a little bit more in the comments what you mean. And that's a really good example that if you don't quite understand the question, you can ask. They obviously can't give you the answer, but it's okay to say things like, oh, as you say that, you know, a few different options crop up to me. It's perhaps that it could mean this, it's perhaps it could mean that. So I'm going to do my best to answer to encompass all of that. Okay. So Alison says, I don't know which they mean. That's why I'm confused by it. So let me Google it. Contextual awareness psychology. Yeah, so it's what I said. It's what I said. It's about the right now. So the right now is, you know, March 2024. So what, in your opinion, is unique about delivering psychology services in the current climate? So it's not really appropriate for me to give you the answer, but it's appropriate for me to direct you to how you can think about that. So as you make, you know, as you connect right now to the fact that it's kind of twilight, that it's, you know, March 2024. Did I just say 2023 before? I'm not sure. March 2024. What is unique about now, you know? And I can think of 1,000 things, but it doesn't feel entirely appropriate to broadcast them all. No, I just the other day there was a budget announced, wasn't there? You know, people are wondering whether there's going to be a general election call any day or whether it might be May or November. Like, you know, there's just a few examples. What's the NHS like at the moment? You know, really have a dig down and think about what it's like for you. Have a listen to some of the, basically a lot of the aspiring psychologist podcast is about contextual factors. So have a listen to some episodes of the Aspiring Psychologist podcast and try and pick out some contextual factors that you might be able to consider from your own viewpoint, from those of the country that you live in, from those of the United Kingdom that you likely live in, from those of the clients that you support now, from those that the clients that you support in future, for the children that you have now or the children that you may or may not have in future. Try and consider the contextual factors for all of them and how it impacts upon delivering psychology services now. You know, delivering psychology services 10 years ago is a very different ball game than delivering psychology services in March 2024 and beyond. And of course, if you were to get onto clinical training, you would start likely in September 2024 and you'd finish 2024, 25, 26, 27 in 2027. All right, 2008, 2011. Yeah, 8, 9, 11, 4. Yeah. So 2028 you'd finish. Yeah, so you'd be first year 2024 to 2025, second year 2025 to 2026, third year 2026 to 20, I don't know. Maths on the spot, not my strong point. I started in 8, 9, 10, 11. So it must be 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7. You'll be finishing in 2027. Why was that so difficult? Don't do that on your interview day, or if you do, just explain that it's under pressure and actually you're much better at maths than what is 4 plus 3. I got a B in maths. Alison says, thanks, that's helpful. I didn't know if they meant the setting the service was being delivered in or what. And I think that's true as well. Absolutely. So you've got to consider it from the service. You've got to consider it from the clearinghouse perspective. You've got to consider it from the course perspective. Like there's so many different contextual factors. They're like layered upon each other. So I think don't be shy to grapple with some of them, but also make reference to the fact that there's many, many other contextual factors too. There was a really, really good session in the membership where we looked at what is it called? Great if I could remember. It'll come back to me in a minute. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Right, I will come back to you. It will suddenly appear in my brain. Georgie, I'm preparing to apply to DCLIN next year for the first time. My background is being an AP, social worker and CBT therapist. Oh, wow, wow, wow. Social worker and CBT therapist, that is amazing. And now an assistant psychologist, all with children, young people and families. What is your view of experience being less broad? So I would say that whilst it's children and young people and the families, you know, you're working with adults in that as well. It's not just working with the children, but also what you may lack in clinical broadness, you absolutely have in clinical depth. You know, you've got that from a social work perspective, you've got it from an assistant psychologist perspective, and you've got it from a CBT therapist. So I would say you're very, very, very well versed, both you know, in terms of depth, but in terms of expertise for that. But yeah, don't forget you're also working with adults. Don't forget you are an adult as well. I think that's what's unique about adult work is like, even if you don't feel like it, if you can't add 4 plus 3, like I couldn't, you are an adult and you have probably, although not always, got parents or people that are older than you in your life, and so adults feel a little bit less scary, hopefully. That said, you know, when I was working with older adults for my assistant post, and I had experience working with older adults as a home carer beforehand and as slightly older adults as a rehab assistant, I had lots of older adult experience and kind of working age adults with disabilities experience. So I was a little bit kind of bottom heavy, top heavy, doesn't matter which, but I was missing out on people with intellectual disabilities and people with children, children and young people. And so I did decide to start applying for jobs. Initially, I did some honorary work, voluntary work, working with brownies to pad out my children and young people experience, which then actually got my foot through the door to get a job working as an assistant with children and young people. So, you know, maybe that you don't really want to change jobs. It sounds like you've been on the go quite a lot over the last few years. But it might be that you consider ahead of, you know, when the applications close in November next year, it might be that now is a great time to start looking at jobs. And what we know is that people will start to find out if they've got places on clinical training in the next couple of weeks. And once the firm job offers come through, sometimes people are like, enough, enough of this game of dominoes. I am quitting and I'm going to go traveling, or I'm going to just do something different for a bit over the summer. So you do start to notice more aspiring psychology roles and assistant psychology roles cropping up over the summer, as well as people begin to hand in their notice, or even sometimes once people know that their member of staff has got on the training scheme, they know that they will be leaving, and so they start to appoint to their role so that they can take over kind of seamlessly in autumn. So you may not want to leave your role, Georgie, but it might be that you if you consider this to be an Achilles heel, it may be that you look to strengthen that a little bit before mid-November, which is when the applications close. So I hope that is useful. Leah. Oh, I don't met anyone called Leah that spelled like that before. How important do you feel it is to have published research? I saw on the application there was a section dedicated to this, disseminations, and I worry I am disadvantaged due to not having any published work. So thank you for watching and thank you for your question. Have you applied already, Leah? Do let me know. Or are you thinking ahead for September when you apply? So have you got interviews this year? In which case you've managed to get interviews without having filled in that section, or are you looking ahead for the next application season? Do let me know. I am just thinking about that word that I can't remember what it is, but why can't I remember it? It's been a long day. Anyone else? Anyone else? Please do comment as you go. There it is. The word I could not remember was intersectionality. So we did a really lovely workshop that got great reviews in the membership on intersectionality. So if you were wondering about the contextual factors and you wanted to be able to have some examples of how to apply those in practice, then do consider joining the membership. There's a session happening tonight, actually, which is further application, interview support and prep. So if you wanted to join the membership, oh, I've got the wrong banner on here. Let me change that. I'm still advertising what I did with Dr. Melody earlier. I did download another one earlier. Right. Where is it? Here we go. It should be this one. Dr. Melody and I there we go. That's a bit better. I was just thinking, I'm sure there's a QR code somewhere, but that was not on the screen. So yeah, I managed to make myself a cup of tea, managed to check that all my mic was working, forgot to upload the overlay. So oops. Yeah, there we go. So if you wanted to look at joining the membership, you can scan that QR code on your screen. If you're watching with your phone, you can't do that. You'd just be able to go to www.goodthinkingpsychology.co.uk and all the details about the membership are on there. Georgie says, super helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. Leah, you're thinking ahead for next September. So you might well find it helpful to watch some of my previous compassionate Q&As. which cover interview season. But don't be falling into the trap that you think that, that many people do, that research is just, or disseminations are just about published peer review research. They are not. So disseminations is anything arising from your work. So it might be that you, I don't know, do a podcast episode, or contribute to a book chapter, or write something, you know, for an organisation. It might be that you put together a leaflet for the organisation that you work in. It might be that you go and present a poster of research that you've done in the past. All of this counts as disseminations of your work. Now, of course, you know, taking part in research, perhaps running your own research or supporting in other people's research, is an incredibly useful thing to do. It would be remiss of me to say that that wasn't the case. But what you can do is you can strengthen your bow. You can reach out to research trusts. So usually NHS trusts will have research teams in them. You can reach out to them, see when their meetings are, and then see if you can get involved with any research. Or, of course, what we know is audit counts as well. Is there anything you could do in your current service? You know, or would they consider begging and borrowing, you doing a little bit of time in another service and then borrowing someone else to do a little bit of time in your service, or vice versa? Like, sometimes if you ask the questions, you can get results. To think about whether you could audit somebody else's service, or you know, you could start alongside the, don't know if your trust or your organization that you work with at the moment has any kind of, so PALs sometimes do this, patient advice and liaison, sometimes survey the clients using the service. So are you already client surveying either weekly or, you know, a few times a month? What happens with that data? You know, so just trying to think outside the box a little bit when it comes to data, things you can measure, things that you can look at. You know, are there any groups? Could you do a small scale kind of service evaluation project between pre and post group scores? Just have a think about some of that stuff. Has that given you any ideas, Leah? Is that useful? Has that sparked any creativity for you? Please do let me know. My cup of tea is fast going cold. Whilst we're here, if you haven't yet checked out the Aspiring Psychologist Collective book, it gets really lovely reviews, as does the Clinical Psychologist Collective book, and that is useful at whatever time of the year it happens to be for you. So do bear those in mind as well. Yeah, there's plenty of episodes of the podcast that are really, really useful. And specifically, if you're looking at research, there's a fair few there that cover research or mention research too. Georgie, within interviews, how do you balance self-reflection and privacy of life experiences? So, carefully, I think. So we don't necessarily want to be oversharing. You know, you may share with them a little bit more than you would share with a stranger on the bus, but you may not want to share as much as you would feel comfortable sharing with your best friend or, you know, your life partner. So I think it's somewhere in the middle, something that doesn't feel super, super uncomfortable for you to explore, but also then won't feel super, super uncomfortable for them to hear. What we're aiming to do is to make you look reflective and contained. So we don't want you to look reflective and uncontained, because that would then lead them to think about whether you were able to cope with the rigors of what might be evocative subjects. So, you know, emotions are good, you know, but we probably don't want you to be in floods of tears as you recount the stuff that might be challenging. So we don't want total intellectualization either. So we don't want you to be able to talk about things as if you're Teflon. and this is something that I talk about with clients quite a lot as well. We don't want you to be non-stick. You know, we want you to evidence that you are thinking as you speak, and that you're doing it in a way that has connected with you, not just that you're speaking, you know, about anything. You know, you're not just reeling off a shopping list. That's not what we're doing. So yes, carefully in answer to your question, but yeah, in a way that doesn't make you feel exposed. So that's something that we practice a lot in the membership as well. So if you wanted to come along, don't forget, if you do join the membership, you get access to the replay content as well. And even just today, I was speaking to somebody that says, one of my members that said, I've watched so many of the videos again lately, just to be able to kind of skill myself up ahead of interviews. So please do bear those in mind, whatever stage of your application journey you are at. Leah says, that's great, thank you. I'm currently completing an audit in my current role, but wasn't aware this would count. Yes, so it's a dissemination of your work, and it's you know, it's using your psychology skills in a way that isn't just clinical. So yeah, that absolutely would count. Yes, so I hope that's useful. Has anybody else got any comments or questions or concerns or hopes for what they were hoping to achieve today? Please do let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. That's so kind. Alison, I joined recently and I'm finding it so helpful watching the recordings. So thank you so much. That's really kind of you to say. I'm pleased that you're enjoying the membership. It's lovely having you on board. Right, so any other questions? Has anyone got any psychology hot topics they want me to consider? This cup was given to me by one of my best friends just after I had my second baby. I think it was. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. So it feels like a very special cup. Do you guys have special cups in your house? It's like a comforting cup. Yes, very nice and nice to be borne in mind by a friend. She also made me a cup that she handcrafted that I used to have at work, which was personalised, so nobody else would use it. But of course, what we know about working in public services is even having your name on your cup does not dissuade people from using your cup. Oh, the idea of using someone else's cup. Ugh. No way, not for me. I am my own cup kind of girl. How about you? Let me know in the comments. Right, what else have I got to talk about that I could waffle on if there's no questions? Let's have a think. Just slow it down. If you have got interviews, just take a moment. Control yourself. Control the room a little bit. You know, don't let it get the better of you. It's a fine balance, isn't it? So we want you to be, in terms of, we want to be in your window of tolerance, but we don't want you to be kind of so hyper that you kind of are bordering on not being able to gather your thoughts, because that is so important. We want you to be able to shine your bright light and do your best. Are we able to share more about the exciting things you do in the membership? So at the moment, there is a very definite theme around interviews, but we do different things all the time. So today we were supposed to have a session on with somebody who's an expert in working with people with ADHD. Unfortunately, that isn't happening because she's not very well, so that's why I've stepped in. So I was working on the interview. I was working on the coming up in the Aspiring Psychologist membership during April, and we have interview prep on the 8th of April at 6 p.m. Every month we have a dedicated clinical psychologist who specialises in CBT, and she guides our members through CBT case formulation and CBT skills. So if you feel like actually CBT is a bit of a weakness for you, or even if you feel like it's a bit of a strength, it's an opportunity to further develop those skills. Just getting tissue, my nose has started running. Further develop those skills. But if you feel like actually, I don't really know where to begin with CBT, then the membership is a really excellent place to be able to help you with that, because we're currently on session number 21, I think. So there's 21 hours of CBT content that you can watch on replay, as well as every month coming along and watching that live. So CBT is a real specialism of the membership. Let me just have a look what else we're up to in April. So we've got a really, really good session actually coming up on the 22nd of April. And that is looking at the easy for me to say, philosophical roots for clinical psychology. So a little bit, when I was at university, there was a module that we used to do, theoretical themes and debates in psychology. So it's kind of building upon that, really. So I think that would probably be an excellent contextual session as well, to be able to really thicken out your knowledge about why we do what we do and how it developed. Because I think it's really interesting to know the full historical context for why we are, and how clinical psychology evolved. I don't know all the answers to that, and so that's what I love about the membership as well, is that I get to do some CPD as well, and it might just be really interesting ways of dropping in stuff that can be useful that you wouldn't have thought about before, very much in the same way of the podcast. What the membership does is it thickens those narratives. And then we have got another session, interview tips and QA, with the most wonderfully compassionate clinical psychologist. I absolutely love her. So that's coming up in April. In March, we've got another session with her as well. And then we've got myself tonight. But there's different stuff that happens all the time. So we've had sessions on DBT. We've had sessions on systemic approaches. Even I introduced somebody to systemic approaches, and she liked it so much that she quit clinical psychology and is now working as a trainee systemic practitioner. So, this changes lives, this membership. It really opens people's eyes to different opportunities. What else have we done? Psychodynamic. What else? So many things. I probably need to get a bit better at updating what it is we've done, but really, really great stuff. Lots of interview tips, lots of application tips. There we go. So Leah says, do you have any tips? Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Do you have any tips for when writing the initial application? Yes, I have absolutely stacks of them. It would probably be helpful for you to watch my replay content. If you go along to YouTube and have a look at the live tab on YouTube, Dr. Marianne Trent, and then you'll be able to see that there are compassionate Q&As there. And you probably can, I think you can select via interview season, or whether you can select via application season. But there's also loads and loads of great content you can access in the membership too. So it's really nice to have a cross section of people watching tonight, both people who are applying to clinical psychology, hope to be applying this year, and also people who've got interviews this year too. But what we know is that it can be a challenging time of year for people as well. So, the deadline for people being notified about places on courses, about interviews, was just this Friday gone. And they, it's difficult, really difficult, if you find out that you've not been offered any interviews, or perhaps you've been offered one and you're hoping for more than one, because that feels like a lot of pressure. Dr. Melody Smith and I did a live to talk through all of these things. We streamed it across our socials, so you should be able to find that as a replay. I know the replay is available on LinkedIn. I know it's available on YouTube, and I know it's available on Instagram. So do check that out if you are feeling like you need some additional support, or some validation, so people that get where you're at right now if you aren't feeling particularly chipper. Georgie, sorry for my questions. You're absolutely welcome. How much, no, it's no problem. How much of an idea surrounding thesis and research questions is recommended for interview? I don't understand the question, Georgie. How much of an idea surrounding thesis or research questions? I don't understand the question. Could you say a little bit more? Do you mean what you plan to do your thesis on if you got onto training? Is that what you mean? Do let me know. Say a little bit more. I don't know what that means. This is going to be your 5 or 10 minute warning. So if you have got any questions and you're watching live, please do drop them in the comments. If you're watching on replay, please do still feel free to comment as well. And I will do my best to mop those up as and when I see them. If you're not already following me on socials, please do. I'm Dr. Marianne Trent everywhere. Georgie says, sorry, I mean, should we have an idea of what we plan to research within a thesis? No. No, I don't think you have to. But that said, it's okay if you do. You know, it's okay if you know that actually you'd really like to explore X, Y, and Z. But you don't want to necessarily, if they don't think that that's something that should be researched, you don't want them to be thinking, oh, no, you don't need to know. In the first year, there will be people coming into the course to talk you through projects that they might be running in their service that they would like some help with, that they'd like you to be the key researcher for, and they'd be likely offering to be your clinical supervisor for that. That said, you can just go rogue and design your own project and find a supervisor, and then the course has to agree to it. The course has usually got people that have contacted them with projects as well, so they might not always turn up in person, and then you can arrange to have a meeting with them. These days you can probably do it by Teams. I think I used to have to go out and actually meet people in my car and go and meet them for a cup of tea. So yeah, you probably can meet remotely or just email them these days to kind of sort through whether you might want to do that. But no, you absolutely don't need to know that at this stage. Any other questions? I might just tell you that I got on to clinical psychology training on my 3rd attempt. So didn't get any interviews on my 1st or my 2nd attempt. Applied to 4 courses both of those times. And the 3rd time I was offered 3 interviews. And then when I was getting ready to, I can't remember what order it was, my 3rd interview was withdrawn because the whole course folded. So I think I already knew that I had a place by that stage, because I was considering whether or not to withdraw, wasn't I? Don't know. But actually, if I had gone to interview and been offered that 3rd course, that I probably would have picked it, because it was in Bristol and my undergraduate friends had all been in South Wales, and so many of them lived in the Bristol area. So I may well have chosen to go to Bristol, but as I think I contacted them about something, and they said, oh, actually, we're sending a letter out, we've had to cancel the whole course. So I only actually had 2 interviews in the end, but thankfully I had those 2 other interviews, because many people perhaps would have just had Bristol that year, and that would have been then through no fault of their own, and no chance to fight for that place. It just wasn't available. It just didn't happen. What do you feel was different on your 3rd doctorate attempt? I think the main difference was that I was ready. I just, I often say it, that I felt like it was my time and I was ready for that next step. When the questions were asked to me, I was excited, not daunted. I felt like I could hold my own in the room. I wasn't particularly daunted by, the qualified clinical psychologist sitting opposite me. I felt like I could hold my own. I felt like I had an interesting viewpoint. I felt like what I was saying was valued and that it was backed up with some research, some theory, some experience, some reflection, some personal insights. I just felt ready. Whereas if I felt excited as well, you know. I was a bit nervous, obviously, but if I'd had an interview on the first or the second time, I would have been way out of my league. Like I would have been terrified. I'd have lost all kinds of sleep, I think. Whereas I just felt it was my time and I was ready to take that next step. And they obviously agreed because I was offered 2 course places. Not on the same course. I wasn't that good. One at each course that I had interviews at. So yeah, I just felt in my bones that it was now, it was the right time. You know, I was using supervision well. I was doing my research I was doing my masters, was doing some Pilates, like spending time with my friends, just yeah, not not a carefree existence because I had stuff going on, but I just felt that it was all my signs were aligning, you know, so to speak. I'm not particularly spiritual, I'm not particularly woo, but it felt like the right time for me. And hopefully that's what people saw, what people agreed with. So yeah, I'm going to disappear very shortly. But yeah, please do bear in mind the Clinical Psychologist Collective book. I never get the sides right. Where is it? There. Clinical Psychologist Collective book. Oh, why can't I do it? And the Aspiring Psychologist Collective book. There we go. I can't. It's because it's backwards. I can't do it backwards. The Aspiring Psychologist Collective book. And bear in mind what rich resources there are available on the Aspiring Psychologist podcast as replays, or new ones that get released each week as well. At the moment, our brand new episode is about navigating psychology from a wheelchair with complex pain. And you might be like, well, I'm not navigating psychology from a wheelchair with complex pain, in which case I would say all the more you perhaps need to listen to that or watch it, because it helps you thresh out your knowledge of contextual factors, which are really, really important. But if you are navigating psychology from the context of complex pain or using a wheelchair, and hopefully that will make you feel really validated and part of, if you can see it, then you can be it. I firmly believe that. So a lot of the work that I do is helping to illuminate, you know, other areas of psychology and different people in psychology, so that people can see themselves and can feel hopeful and kind of know which direction they can point themselves in. Like even seeing me as a qualified clinical psychologist now, you'd be like, I can see it, so I can be it. You know, I can see that she can't add up from 4 to 7. I can see that she forgets what she's saying. I do that as well. She can be a clinical psychologist. I can be a clinical psychologist. So yeah, I hope that you have found tonight useful. Please do replay. Please do comment, even if watching on replay. Please do like this video so that it helps people know that the content is worth viewing. I will look forward to coming and speaking with you for our next Compassionate Q&A, which will be coming along to you. Let me just find out. I've got a feeling it's in April. Let's have a little look. The next date is Monday, the 15th of April, 2024 at 6 p.m. So yeah, please do pop that date in your diary. If you don't want to miss it, please do come along and join my mailing list, which you can do by coming along to goodthinkingpsychology.co.uk. Scroll right down to the bottom of the page or scan this QR code on screen now, and yeah, there'll be an option there for joining my mailing list. Thank you so much for your time. If you've got interviews this coming interview season, I'm wishing you all the very best. Please do bear in mind the Aspiring Psychologist membership, and be kind to yourselves, won't you? I'll see you very soon. Take care.